welcome to the Senate and House Commerce Committees. It's a pleasure to have another joint meeting. So good to see all of our House of Representative friends today. Thank you for allowing us to join you and hear this very important topic. Thank you also to Natalie for lunch today. It was delicious. Thank you very much. And I will see if my co-chair, Representative Tarwater, has any opening remarks.
It's just great to be here with you guys, and let's start the show. Thank you.
Okay, so today we have a presentation on the Kansas State Use Law and report on annual sales. And I understand we're going to kind of have a tag team. So first up, we have Buddy Sell from Envision, chair of the Kansas State Use Law Oversight Committee. Buddy, welcome to the committee.
In Wichita, Kansas. And the State Use Committee was formed, the State Use Law was formed in the 1950s to support Kansans with disabilities, or what we call differently abled individuals. I want to introduce my CEO, Michael Monteferrani, who's visiting and making sure that I don't mess up today in my presentation so that I'll have a job going forward. But fantastic CEO, president of Envision. Our CFO, Mark Eaton, and Andy Hoffman will be speaking a little bit later just to give you an example of the type of things that the state use law is designed to support. As the chair, I'm here to speak on behalf of Envision and the 7 other agencies that are represented in the state of Kansas. Representing Kansas with different abilities, not disabilities. But one of the things, after being with Envision for 22 years, that I wasn't even aware of, is that the CDC states that there are 581,000 Kansans with disabilities in Kansas. I don't want to get into the discussion about the definition of disabilities, but if you even took 10% of that number, that's 58,000 Kansans that are ready to go to work that need the support of the state agencies and the state use law. And that's a tremendous number. I also know that there happens to be 70,000 Kansans that are blind, legally blind in the state of Kansas. This program being around since the 1950s, Senator Faust-Godot sits on this committee, and she pulled me to the side and she says, so excited about us being more engaged, because I don't think a lot of people have heard of the State Use Committee. And that's a shame, and it's something that I want to take personally responsible for. But I know that 10 years ago, I've been with Envision for 22 years, as I mentioned, but 10 years ago, legislators spent $10 million on services for people who are visually impaired. Last year, we spent $200,000, the legislature spent $200,000 just for people who are visually impaired. And that's not to say anything bad about the support that you guys have given, but you've turned it over to agencies that are much more adept at providing these services, and appreciate that. But the state use law allows us to generate revenue to support the employees and the services that we provide. So Envision, again, I'm here to talk about the entire committee, but Envision spends $5 million annually providing programs and services to people who are visually impaired. And that type of revenue is coming from the support from not only state agencies, but federal agencies as well. And again, what I would like to do is just ask for you to pay more attention to, again, the people with disabilities in the state of Kansas, and not even recognizing that the CDC said that there's 581,000 individuals with disability, but these are people that deserve our support, and I want to be more engaged with the legislators and try to get more support from you all. I know how important you guys are and what type of influence that you have in the lives of Kansans. But one of the things that I've learned is that the Board of Regents, universities and colleges, the school systems and state purchasers are required to buy from the state use program. But the legislators, or the Kansas legislators, is an optional purchase. One of the asks that I would like for you to consider is at least moving that from optional to a preferred status. Our jobs are to make the products competitive, and if it is a preferred source and it meets your requirements, all of those purchases go back to supporting the thousands and thousands of Kansans with disabilities in the state today. I want to bring Natalie up to talk a little bit about the annual report, but my job as the chair is to try to get more attention to this very vital program to Kansans. And we're going to need your help and try to stay on the tip of your tongue when you're considering laws and things that influence Kansans with disabilities. We all know that the budget process this year has been very, very tight across the federal chain as well. And we're in a unique situation where we all 8 agencies have Kansans with disabilities that want to work, but we don't have the work to give to them, where the public has a need for workers. And we're in that situation where if we could get more work, more purchases from us, we could provide those services. So again, if you could think about those type of opportunities, there are thousands of people on waiting lists to get into our programs now, but we can't afford to bring them into our programs. So the more success that we have through the state use program, I think the more Kansans that we will be able to serve with disabilities. So Envision is doing a presentation out in the hallway. I know that some of you guys have come through there and given a little bit of sighted guide training. But I also want to introduce Andy Hoffman to come up and talk about his experience with Envision. And he came from T-Mobile 10 years ago when their accessibility was no longer suitable to meet his demands. So their loss has been Envision's gain. And Andy's a fantastic individual. And you'll get to see why he's moved from customer service into inside sales, just because he's deservingly so. So Andy, if you'll come up and.
Hi, Andy. Welcome to the committee.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And, you know, I kiss up with the best of them. So Buddy and Michael and Mark and all them, you know, that's how I do it. So, I mean, work hard, but I also kiss very well. Yeah, so, you know, the Kansas State Youth Program is a very important committee and a law that we have. My customers that I reach out to not only are the Federal Bureau of Prisons, which are very interesting, and the VA hospitals, but the Kansas State Youth Program is now mine to kind of tackle. So I try to reach out to everyone. I mean, there's so many districts, school districts that don't buy from us, and they may be smaller, more rural. They may go to, you know, Johnny's hardware store and pick up a box, and, you know, a lot of them do that, which, you know, they want their state tax dollars to go local, which is great, but I try to explain to them tax dollars that they spend through all their purchases, Kansas State Youth Program comes back to Kansas. You know, back in '91, in 8th grade, I started losing my vision a little bit and didn't think much about it. Ironically, my grandpa was an optometrist down there and took me all over the country, and, you know, I was just like, oh, I'm good. Slowly, you know, high school went through at Cape of Mount Carmel, and my driving was not up to par anymore. So I started looking around for other opportunities after high school and worked at T-Mobile for a solid 10 years, which was a great company. I don't know if I'd be at Envision if it wasn't for T-Mobile due to the person I met. Alicia Israelson is a person that started a camp with a bunch of her other Delta Gamma sisters called Heather's Camp, after Heather Moeller, who tragically passed away in 2000 from the Carr brothers. And so they went ahead and named this camp after her. And it's a camp for just visually impaired kids, blind kids, and a lot of these kids, the vision impairment and the blindness is a very small portion of their disabilities. And so in 2005, she asked me to come out to camp, and she's like, oh, yeah, you'd be great. You're great energy. I was like, kind of a lazy blind. Didn't use a cane. People knew just to look out for me because at the time I just used a Zoom program. And so after volunteering there at camp for all those years, in 2011, they said, you know, we're moving software programs, and it wasn't accessible to what my vision was at the time. So being down in the dumps, a couple of people said, look at Envision, and I knew of Envision. I didn't know what it was all about, but after taking a tour and seeing all the people that work there that are blind or visually impaired, I mean, the factory is just full of people, great people, and most of them are from other states, because there isn't work where they live, and there is an opportunity for people that are blind and visually impaired. So they all travel, and I'm guarantee I'm the only person out of the 7 people in my department that are blind or visually impaired from Wichita. And so it's great that there's an organization, second largest in the country, that are blind and visually impaired hires. And with the Kansas State Youth Program, we're still able to provide people to come out. We're providing them more work, making more trash bags, highlighters, markers. We sell Gojo hand soap, and there's so many agencies in the state of Kansas that don't buy from us. And so right now I'm reaching out to all the different school districts that don't buy, different government agencies within the state, and just letting them know, just kind of a lot of them just don't know. So informing them is really good. So as representatives, you know, in different districts, it'd be great if you could just say, hey, are you aware of this? You know, it's not, you know, contracted, but it is something that is preferred, whether it's going directly to us or going through Staples that also goes through us. We have lots of programs from the Camp for the Blind that Buddy and Mike and our Buddy and Michael and Mark have really pushed to make bigger each and every year. We have a big golf clinic that I'm part of, because a lot of the stuff I used to do, I stopped as soon as I started losing my vision. So with these programs, I'm able to play golf. I mean, I'm better than Michael, but now I'm blind. No, I'm not. But yes, I mean, there's programs like that. We have a Level Up. I'm not the most accessible, technology savvy guy, but I do know computers, and thankfully, yeah, we have a program called Level Up. And that's where we have high schoolers and junior high kids go to a camp for a week, and they learn everything that's accessible, from computers to iPhones to just anything they need, all the different tools to help them be successful in school and in life. And it's just great programs that are only supported by the money that we make. And we're not asking for handouts. I mean, we provide solid work. All these people working, making trash bags, making all the products, all my department taking the phone calls, putting the orders in. It takes a lot of skills. And sadly, a lot of companies out there don't want to mess or hassle with hiring a blind person. What's this entail? What do we have to do? And with new programs that we have, we're fighting that, reaching out to the community and saying, hey, we train them. We have white collar jobs available now. A few years ago, the 3 of these guys back here spent a bunch of money getting software so the whole company is accessible now. So all these blue collar jobs that we had in the factory now have moved up. So my department, besides me, everybody started in the factory, and now they're in white collar jobs. And it's just nice opportunities like that that is funded by the Kansas State program in all their purchases, whether it's out in Dodge City or the Topeka Zoo that does buy trash bags from us, to everywhere else. And, you know, like I said, we're more than trash bags. We're highlighters, markers, Gojo products, and all the other programs from Catch to Starkey, Goodwill, that also sell products in there to help provide jobs for people that want to work, not just sit at home. But we need your assistance to make sure that people know, people are aware, and people know that, hey, this is a great program, this is a great company you need to go through to, you know, make Kansas State Youth program successful. And that's my story.
So now you can see why he's been promoted to inside sales. I mean, there's 150 people at Envision, just like Andy, that need that support. But one of the things that I've challenged the committee to do as chair is to set goals for ourselves. I hate that this program has been around since the 1950s, and then to hear Senator Faustido tell me that she was talking with her colleague, and they weren't even aware that there was a state use law or that there was such a committee. So we need that type of knowledge and representation. A few years ago, and Natalie will get into the numbers, but a few years ago, the state use program was doing $11 million in sales. Last year, we did roughly $6 million in sales. So what I've challenged this group as the committee is to grow these sales at a minimum of 10% per year for the next 5 years, and to bring more participants, more agencies into this important program that we're counting on you guys to truly support. I mean, again, with so many thousands of Kansans with disabilities, and it needs your support. And to hear the legislative branch of Kansas is only an optional purchase, but I'd really like to get you to talk to your people and ask them, are you purchasing from the Kansas State Use Program? And if not, what can we do? And all things being equal, we would definitely love you to support, obviously, Kansans in general, but Kansans with disabilities.
And it's all made in America products, made right here in Kansas. And we're very happy and very successful with that. We have high-quality products. We have high-quality skilled labor. And this all supports it with the Kansas State Use Program. And calling people and saying, hey, this is it, and they're like, do I have to buy from it? It's like, well, it's preferred. But, you know, Topeka, the USD schools in Topeka buy from us. All the schools, major schools, Kansas City, Blue Valley is a tough one. They put everything out to bid, but with the Kansas State Use Program, there's a lot of different places throughout Kansas that could buy from us and that should buy from us, but they just put out to bid for anybody. And that's really unfortunate when a lot of those people make money, no matter whether Blue Valley buys from them or not. We need every sale we can, and we're very competitive pricing and with quality products.
Before I introduce Natalie to go over some of the annual reports, are there any questions, Representative Croft or Representative Tarwater, any questions that you guys may have for Andy that he can follow up with you on?
I believe we do have some questions. We'll start with Representative Sutton and Senator Dahl.
Simultaneously?
First you, then
All right.
Senator Dahl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You mentioned the decrease in sales from 11 million to 6 million over a span of just a few years. What do you attribute that decline to?
I'm going to take responsibility as the chair of us not getting the word out and getting you guys involved a little bit more and us promoting the product more and what we do. The other thing is that we had one of the agencies fall off. Cartridge King which was a big provider of that. But in talking with these sister agencies, so I'm trying to recruit more Kansas agencies into the program, and openly, they're not seeing value. And what I'm trying to do is change that mindset and let them know that there will be value and that we do have a strong Kansas coalition that is interested in growing these opportunities where they see value in becoming a part of the program.
All right, if I could follow up just a little bit.
Certainly.
Thank you. So trying to figure out how to phrase this exactly. When sales were at 11 million, was there more outreach going on then? Or was it strictly the Cartridge King drop-off that caused this 11 to 6
I think
switch?
that there openly was more support for that Kansas State program. It certainly was not all Cartridge King that dropped off. I mean, the world has gotten much more competitive, and there's people trying to get into the state use programs and are marketing directly to all of our current customers. And they're given all the reasons why, you know, it might be 10% less to buy from a national company. Amazon is tracking to try to get a lot of this business, which would have a profound impact on the state use agencies. And I understand how tight dollars are, but one way or the other, like I mentioned, 10 years ago, you were funding the blind services at a clip of $10 million per year. Last year, you spent $200,000. So you're spending that money, but the individuals want to earn that. And if all things are equal, we know that Amazon can buy your business. They can get us to a below cost sale price until we no longer exist. And then they can raise their prices and do that. And like it or not, that is the competitive nature of business. But to answer your question, yes, Cartridge King falling off was a component of that, but nowhere near $5 million.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You bet. Senator Dahl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you give comparable pay for comparable work?
Yes, sir. We have Service Contract Act wages. We do not have minimum wage, sub-minimum wage certificates. So even our most severely disabled individuals at Envision are paid minimum wage or above, even if they're 10% productive.
And then when I started at T-Mobile, it was like $10 an hour, which in 2000 I thought was pretty change. And by the time I left there, you know, it was about 17. And so when I came to Envision, I had to start over again. But I've worked my way back up and going into sales and stuff like that with those opportunities, doing the Kansas State Youth Program and having BOPs and government aid. You know, it's all tax dollars that are in Kansas going to Kansas American-made products. A lot of these companies out here, different Janssens, I mean, they're just buying Jaguar or China-made products. And I mean, as long as the dollar is right, the people that are in charge of buying at the school districts or the government buildings, it's just a trash bag. Well, it's not supporting anything in Kansas. You're spending tax dollars on not American-made stuff or Kansas-made stuff. And with the Kansas State Use Law, we can help you put those tax dollars all circle back into here.
And the state of Texas has a fantastic state use program. And you know, we acquired a blind agency that was going out of business. Rather than laying off 100 people, we were able to do that. And the state use program really helps support a lot of things down there. And I'm not here to just talk about Envision. I'm here to represent all 8 members of the coalition. But I truly want to bring more interested parties, more agencies like ours into that arena so that we can serve more Kansans with disabilities. But I need your help to help them understand that there truly is value in joining the state use program. So again, thank you for your time, and I know how valuable your time is. But I want to introduce Natalie Bright, who's leading our coalition, and she's going to do some annual reports. Any other questions before we?
We do have a few more before we get to Natalie. First, we have Representative Highland and then Senator Ware.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Big Lakes over in Manhattan, they're not on your list. Do they do their own thing, or how does that work?
Is Big Lakes the?
They're not part of it. So they could be a potential.
So again,
That's a potential.
another agency that we would love to bring into the state use program. And I can give you a card. They can reach out directly to me, and we can have those conversations with them.
Okay,
We want to grow this program to 20-plus agencies, not just the 7 or 8 that we currently have in. And we don't want any others to fall off because they don't see value in it. The more Kansans we can serve, the better. And we have these goals that we've laid out, and people are like, I can't believe that you're making all these, and they're true goals that I didn't want just 10% growth. I wanted a much bigger growth than 10% because we went from 11 million to 6 million. But I settled on the 10% for a 5-year growth period. But that to me is a floor. We need to exceed that 10% growth and get back up to the $11+ million. So.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Envision is entirely not sub-minimum wage. I'm wondering about any of the other coalition members.
There may be a couple that are dealing with developmental disabilities that are still in the sub-minimum wage category, but I don't have enough knowledge to speak to
Senator Representative Croft. Sorry, Representative Croft.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You mentioned Texas is doing a good job. Did you already explain what the differences are between what they're doing and what we're doing?
Well, Texas mandates that they have to get a waiver before they go out for other purchases outside of the state use program. For when an item is identified as a state use catalog item, they must require a waiver before they go out and buy a commercial item. It's supposed to be that way in the state use law today in Kansas, but I know for a fact that we're not getting those waivers before, they go out to an Amazon or to Joe's Hardware to buy certain products. And again, I'm not here to get anybody in trouble. I just want to make sure that we are marketing the value of the state use program. And as you are engaged with your community and help us grow this program back to where it was and beyond, I think it's a vital program to Kansas, particularly in today's economy.
Especially with the disabled. I mean, you go back, what, 10 maybe, 20, 30, 40, 50 years? I mean, man, what did they do with people with disabilities? Kind of put them in a home, and that's about it, I think my mom was born with, had polio when she was 1 in 1952, and then, of course, that's when the vaccination comes out a year later. But, with my mom's push and drive here in Kansas, going to Southwestern, being a teacher, that really kind of motivated me when I started losing my vision, not to get down. And I look at my mom and everything she did, and I'm like so thankful that Wichita has, we have a pretty good program here in Wichita, or state of Kansas. Lots of disabled people, from hearing impaired to blind to a Cerebral Palsy Research Foundation. I took computer classes there back in 2000, and it was so incredible in Wichita by WSU, all these people with cerebral palsy and all the jobs they were doing. And you talk to anybody at Envision that is blind or visually impaired, and all of them would say, people are working there until their 70s and 80s because they don't want to sit at home. They want to work. They want to have a job. They want to contribute to society. And with Envision, you're able to do that. And with all our programs that we can support, that comes from the Kansas State Youth Sales. And that helps out Goodwill, Catch, Starkey, that also has similar programs to help out their disabled people.
If you're ever in Wichita, I would highly encourage you to come by, reach out to myself or to Michael Monteferrani, and we'll do a personal tour for you. I know several have been on that tour, just to let you see that from birth to death, we serve Kansans with disabilities. We just were introduced to a 3-year-old girl that we're teaching to cane, who's visually impaired. And if I could have brought her today, it would have been incredible for you to see.
And I wouldn't be here if he had.
No, I would have still brought him.
No, she's very cute. She has a little cane, and then.
Tegan is an amazing 3-year-old little girl that's learning to cane in our Early Childhood Development Center, where it's a Head Start program for children who are visually impaired. And to get you guys out there to see that would be, I think, a better understanding of what our tax dollars, what your purchases are helping to fund.
It's amazing. We have 2 buildings. We have the south side of Wichita is where the business industries is, where we make everything. Main Street, where some of the bigger up guys, they work over at Main Street downtown. That's where the Child Development Center is, and Miss Houston, who's completely blind, amazing woman, has her master's, loves her children, and it's cute, but at the same time, amazing to see all these different kids that are blind or visually impaired with sighted kids, because it's not only for blind or visually impaired. It's a early child development center, and it's wonderful to see right there. That's exactly the first thing you see that this is going towards.
Everybody competing for your dollars, guys. I know that you get people in here asking you for this, that, and the other, but to me, my passion is serving people with disabilities, and that's why I pay my taxes. That and for the military are the reasons I pay my taxes. And thank you for your time. Any other questions?
We do have some more questions. Any follow-up, Representative Croft? Okay, Senator O'Shea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was looking at the PowerPoints on page 3, PowerPoint slide 5. It says that USDs are required to purchase SUL products, but not services. But I thought I heard you mention that some of the school districts still request. Natalie?
Absolutely.
So when we redid the law in the early 2000s, school districts were.
If you could please state your name and,
Natalie Bright,
Thank
here
you
on
very
behalf of the Coalition for Opportunity. School districts were asked to be exempted out of the services side of it, so they still are required to buy the products, but not the services. And some of that had to do with just workforce and the needs with the kids. They asked to be exempted from that. So unlike state regions and state agencies.
okay, Representative Williams.
And Madam Chair, if Natalie is going to speak, then I will wait until after she speaks, or is this our only conferee today?
No, Natalie will have a presentation, so if you'd rather hold your
Excellent. I
question.
will wait until the end of Natalie's.
Okay, very good.
Okay, I see how it goes.
Okay, Representative Tarwater.
Okay, gotcha.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thanks, Buddy and Andy, for being here today. We usually have you in every year in Commerce, and I always look forward to hearing from Envision, especially. The other companies haven't really participated as much with our Commerce Committee, but I know they're out there. And I really appreciate you, Andy, mentioning the Child Development Center. I was down there a couple months ago and toured that, and it really is incredible to see. And I don't know how a blind teacher watches that many kids.
Miss Houston's, she's
right.
No one's gonna mess with Miss Houston.
But
so
for those of you that haven't been down there, I would highly suggest
please, anytime you're in Wichita, if it's during the week, just please give us a call. I'd love to have you guys in and see that it's an incredible building, even from the floor that's tactile for people that are blind walking in a hallway. We have tactile areas that show, well, you're at an intersection, you can go left or right. There's just different things to our building that you wouldn't see at another building. And it's up to date, it's nice, it's taken care of, and it's just amazing all the programs that come through both. The ECDC, the Early Child Development Center, it's definitely good. It's a heart warmer, and I think Miss Houston does a wonderful job. She even has several BVI people over there, BVI, blind visually impaired, whether they're low vision or completely. It's great. In Wichita, I get out and visit with some different kids, schools, because fourth grade, that's when you start learning about senses, and that's usually when you learn about Helen Keller. And so when they get to those topics, I know a lot of girls from Heather's camp that volunteer every year, and they're like, oh, come talk to my school. And it's really cool to get kids' reactions, and having the Kansas State Youth Program support that, because without their dollars, Envision can't do programs to educate as well. And kids love that stuff. I mean, their first question is like, how do you go to the bathroom? But that's kids. But yeah, it's just being able to go out there and tell them all about it, like I would love to do with every single USD or it's just a box of trash bags, but this is what that box does.
And you've asked us questions. I'd like to ask the committee's questions if you don't mind. What can we do as the chair? What can I say to the members and take ownership of that we can do better to promote internally the state youth program?
Well, that was another request that I had, actually, Madam Chair. Okay. I would like to request from staff to review the Texas youth law and let us know what's different, what we could do better. And what I'd like from you guys is a list of all the companies and all the products so that we can all know. And, like, for example, Blue Valley that you mentioned earlier, they're currently, my entire district has most of those schools in it. It's up to Representative Croft to keep it that way, but that's a discussion for a different time. However, I will be talking to them about this. They need to understand the importance of this program. And, even if it's a first right of refusal type deal where they include you in the bids, and if you're a better bid or even close, they give you the benefit of the doubt. And I know that you're very competitive because the Secretary of State brought us a law last year that allowed them to go outside for printing, and they saved a tremendous amount of money, several $100,000, I believe, somewhere around there. But they used Envision instead of having to use whatever they were having to use. And so I know you're competitive, and it would be good to get, for all of us to know what the products are so we could take it back to our school districts and ask them to give you the benefit of the doubt on it.
And then I'll get all your names, so when I call them, I'll be like, all right, I'm going to tell.
So you had mentioned earlier that there was a waiting list of 10,000 people to get into a program.
Yes, sir. So there's a waiting list for 4,500 people on one list that is to get into what we call our Pride Department. And we would love to be able to expand and provide those type of services, but, and it's not just the waiting list to get into our programs, there's waiting lists to get into the other agencies' programs as well, because there is no funding to support them. So our Pride Department, and Michael might kick me in the rear for saying this, is a major money loser for Envision. So we have to be able to fund that Pride Department through the sales of federal. The majority of Envision's money comes from the Department of Defense and the federal products that we sell across the Department of Defense. But the monies that are spent in the state use program are very, very important to us. Dallas, the organization we purchase in Dallas, the state use program dwarfs our sales. And Dallas is much bigger. I mean, Texas is much bigger, but it's, you know, it's almost laughable, the volume difference of the support there that they're getting. And I'm going to take responsibility as the chair as not doing more to promote Kansas. So.
Yeah, and if you have suggestions, if you have anybody that I could reach out to, because, you know, when I call, I'm calling somebody that I last had on my list that bought it, and they're like, oh, I don't know. This is just what I'm told to buy. Talk to my facilities guy, whether it's a school or a government building. And it, you know, it's good. I mean, and it's a lot more hard, you know, oh, we don't want your robocall. It's like, no, no, no. And, you know, it's when I try to explain the mission, I mean, that's a really important part, and being able, and but it's very hard to get the right people on the phone to do that. And so with you guys kind of pushing it out there, say, hey, be aware of Envision. They have some great things going on with the Kansas State to help, because everybody has somebody in their lives that they know that are disabled. So whether it's blind, visually impaired, hearing impaired, physically impaired, I mean, it just goes so far with each purchase, whether it's one box of trash bags, some soap, some highlighters, just everything goes right back to Kansans. And I think that's what's most important. That way people aren't going outside the state for products.
And committee, we're going to go ahead. We have about 20 minutes left, so I want to make sure that Natalie gets to present her information, and then we'll open it back up for questions.
Our goal today, guys, was to stand out, and hopefully I know that you guys have hundreds of people presenting to you. So I'm hoping that this will stick in your minds as far as supporting Kansans with disabilities. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Welcome back, Natalie.
Thank you so much. Natalie Bright here on behalf of the Coalition of Opportunity. Envision is one of the members of the Coalition for Opportunity, and it was great synergy that they happen to be having an Envision Experience Day today. So I encourage all of you to make sure you stop by their activities they're doing. Chairman Tarwater, you will notice in the state use law reports, there is a list of the current active state use law vendors, as well as the products they offer. There's a link to the state use law catalog in that report. Everything is now electronic for the state use law catalog. I'm going to date myself here, but I think I probably have the most seasoned experience within the state use law. I actually started working on it back in the early 2000s when there was a lot of animosity between the state use law vendors and the required purchasers. And so we did some revamping of the law, I think in 2005, 2006, to try to streamline it and to make it a more productive process. We created the State Use Law Oversight Committee, and I think that was one of the most genius things the legislature did, because it brought all the parties together and forced dialogue and conversation, which is how we can make things better and how we can continue to keep this program moving forward. I think it's been talked about that Texas has a great program. I can tell you I've visited Oklahoma. That's another state that does their state use law pretty well. What they do is there's no state contract that goes out before it is submitted to the state use law, their state use law vendors, and lets them look at it to see if it's anything within that contract RFP proposal that they might perhaps be able to provide. If they can, they carve that piece out to those vendors, and then the rest goes out for open bid. It is mandatory that state agencies, regent universities, and school districts, with the carve out of services, do purchase the products and services that are offered in the catalog, but our law doesn't have a stick. And so that's kind of where we are always been in this dance, where our vendors want to be like other business representatives out there and not come with a hammer and say, you must comply with this. And so we've worked through many years of trying to grow the sales and trying to find ways, but we need better partnerships. And, you know, I think we've spent a lot of time trying to do it outside of this legislative body, but I think really you guys are across the state and could be our best partners to help your community partners and your state agencies, school districts understand the importance of this program, the public policy behind it, and why we have it, because it is really ultimately those tax dollars that are being reinvested into not people with disabilities, but I like to say people with abilities. They just may be a little bit different in what they can do. And so I'd love to turn that dialogue around to that. And all of you know, I love workforce development, and you mix it with some nonprofit and persons with disabilities, and it's euphoria for me. And so that's why I love what the Coalition of Opportunity does, what the state youth law program does, because I think there is so much opportunity for us to grow and to provide, but we do need your partnership. And so part of what we did in the early 2000s was to require this annual report be presented so that we could educate lawmakers on it. But we know you get so much information. So every year we've come forth with this report and we've presented it to you. I actually went back last night and kind of looked at the annual sales based on some conversations Buddy and I had. And we did have one record year of $11 million. It was because one state agency chose to be a really good partner with one of our providers, and about 5 million of that was from that one state agency for one of our providers. The other record year we had was about 9 million. The rest of those have been somewhere between 5 and 7 million on a basis. I love that Buddy has come onto the State Youth Law Committee and wants to do something with it. And so his goals that he is setting, I think, put some pressure on the vendors and some of those partners to be more progressive in what we're doing and trying to find ways to increase those sales. 10% isn't a huge benchmark, but it's big for this group. And so we'd look to partner with you. If you look at those State Youth Law reports, I'm not going to read it for you, but I do want to highlight a few things, and that is that our committee members, they are made up of legislators. So Senator Fausto serves from the Senate side, and currently we have Representative Kim Cannon from the House side. So those individuals can be a direct link for you, but from elected official to kind of know what's going on in the committee. They do attend the meetings when they're available. We meet every other month. The State Youth Law Committee meets every other month. They've been meeting virtually. We hope to get back in person soon, but with COVID and things like that, it's been more virtual. As I mentioned on the sales, they've fluctuated during those times. And you know, really with Buddy's assistance, and Envision is one of our best producing state youth law vendors. You'll notice from that list, a lot of them are in South Central Kansas, that manufacturing base that we're so proud of in Kansas. A lot of that comes from South Central. So we'd like to bring in more partners like Representative Highland. We would love to bring some more of those groups in and be a part of this and grow what's offered in the catalog. We've also expanded it recently to allow cities and counties where it's a preferred vendor. They don't have to go through the competitive bid process. So that helped with some growth sales, and you'll notice that in the other sales in the report. When we talk about school districts, you'll see that less than half of the school districts are making any purchase. I do have a full list of sales that's been provided by the participants, the vendors. If you'd like to see how your school district or districts within your boundaries, let me know. I'm happy to share that with you. It's just really long, and I didn't want to kill any more trees than I needed to present this to you, but I'm happy to send that to you, and you can see where the purchases have been for those school districts. Wichita, USD 259, I want to give a shout out to them. They've been a great partner for many years, and they work well with Envision because they have dialogue. Because when Envision, when they have something they need or want, they go to Envision and say, hey, could you make this happen? And that's happened multiple times with them. We'd love to have that dialogue with other agencies that are a part of this. You know, Bidco does digital imaging. There's a lot of need for that in today's world, right? Because we're shifting from so much paper into digital records. So that's a great opportunity. Tark Industries is here in Topeka. They service the developmentally disabled. They do mailroom. They do processing of shredding, different processes like that. So there's a great opportunity, but we could add a lot of other services. You know, state government is a consumer of a lot of things. And so just starting with that and growing it, getting our communities to be a partner with it, your local units of government, it's a great way for them to be able to purchase without having to go through that expensive competitive process sometimes. So with that, I would love to stand for any questions that you might have for me.
Thank you so much, Natalie. I do know Representative Williams had a question.
I did, and I was looking on page 12 of the slides, and I was looking for center technology, but I actually found it on this other handout. So I was wondering why they weren't included in that. My first question is, when you're talking about potentially growing this, is your workforce able? I mean, do you have enough of qualified disabled workers that could take on this growth?
That's a great question. We've talked about that a lot through the years, and it is kind of that cart and horse, right? Finding that balance. I asked just one vendor today, Goodwill Industries, who does sewing. He said, bring it on. We have so many people we could put to work in our sewing department. There's probably some balance, but they would love to have that opportunity and that challenge.
And then last dual question is one, what level of participation are you getting from agencies? I mean, you mentioned the trash bags, that's an easy one. And that seems like an obvious, that any agency might potentially use. And the second one is the bid process. If school districts are having an open bid for these types of products, maybe they don't for these smaller ones, maybe they do it in a larger number, then why aren't you winning those bids? Or are you just not quite close enough? Or tell us a little bit about that.
That may be a better question for Envision because I'm not in that part of the business, but my understanding is a lot of times there's lost leaders in that. So they will be package deals. They participate in Greenbush, larger purchases. Sometimes we'll hear local community, they're buying from their local business office, those types of things. So, yeah.
So I'd like to address that question. Yeah. So one of the answers, the main answer to that is a lot of it goes out for small business bid, and as a not-for-profit agency, we're not small business. So we can't even participate in those bids. The other answer is that, my hopes is that all things close to equal, we have the opportunity. And if the agency wants to purchase from us, they know how tight their dollars are. So if we can allow them, and we're working with the Rick Beatty, who's leads from the procurement side of the house on the contract side, to allow our opportunities to be not competitively bid if they choose to go that way, if it's bought from a qualified state agency. They're not going to spend more money than what they have. So all things being close to equal, they'll do that with the vendors that are reaching out. And to me, that would be a great opportunity to bring value to these new agencies that come on board, because not just items that are on that state use mandatory list, but optional items can be available through that in a quick, expedited fashion. We all know how difficult the supply chains are right now. And we have a fantastic relationship with USD 259. When they run out of food trays, they don't want to go out for bid for it because, they may not be able to get it, and then to find out 6 weeks later that the order was canceled is a problem for them. And lowest price bidder is not always the best value, particularly in a cafeteria setting when you don't have food trays to serve product with. So we're looking at opportunities like that, but what we're not going to be able to do is get into the small business competitive bid process. And there's always going to be somebody out there like an Amazon or an Office Depot or somebody that can buy that business that is working through some of these small businesses to win the competitive bid. All I'm asking is that all things being close to equal, we win the jump balls in the state use program. So, and you got to believe that they know how limited their dollars are. So they're not spending a whole lot more if they can avoid that.
It's official. Cindy owes us all ice cream.
Well, and I can agree that you do not want a bunch of hangry middle school students and teachers. So it's very important that we have what we need when we need it.
I think what he said, it's the dialogue. That's the key, is often if they can have that dialogue and find those solutions on the price. Catalog is the ceiling price. If they're buying in quantity, they can often negotiate a better price. And we just have to have that dialogue with the agency and the school district.
Okay, Senator Ware, then Representative Clayton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me. So I'm going to ask you, what about these other folks in the coalition? How often are the workers paid sub-minimum wage?
It's my understanding there's one, maybe two, that still has some sub-minimum wage. It is in the developmentally disabled community, which is the more difficult place to place in a more competitive job environment. And so, that is kind of a national debate that's going on. Do we do away with the 14C? In a perfect world, absolutely competitive employment for everybody. But I don't know that that is actually the reality that we will see. But I love what you guys are looking at in that Bill 2219, I believe is the number, which is focused on the developmentally disabled. It came out of your committee, Madam Chair, and it's on the Senate General floors. That is things that can stimulate that growth and help get that minimum wage, get that competitive wage for those individuals, but still allow them to remain in a safe environment built for them. Yeah. Boy, it's racking up fast.
I think that was Connie's phone so that the Senate Commerce can get it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Did you have a follow-up, Senator Ware? Okay, Representative Clayton, then Representative Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Committee, if I could have you turn to page 6 of the slides, slide number 12. So we're looking at our qualified vendors, and I'm noticing, so Envision is primarily based in Sedgwick County, and I see Envision, Envision Print, and BVI Workforce Innovation Center at Envision. Can you tell me what counties these other qualified vendors are located in? Because I'm thinking about this from a participation rate and supply chain issue. When this was first put into place, this was in pre-COVIDian times when we didn't have to worry about supply chain the way that we do now. Now, obviously, thinking about this from my ever-present Johnson County lens, I don't want to see any of our big 5 school districts get punished for perhaps cutting costs by getting supply chains from more local areas. Obviously, goodwill is everywhere, but if someone could edify me and tell me where these other qualified vendors are located, I would be very grateful.
The current list here primarily is in the South Central area, and that has been, we've tried really hard in Johnson County. We met with Johnson County Developmental Disability Organization, and just haven't had the interest for them to get engaged in this level of work. And so at the same time, I would still say they are state tax dollars, and they're being reinvested in our communities throughout, because there are individuals who come from Johnson County to get the services, to find employment. And so I want to remember that we are Kansans. And so it's not so much a state logistic, and pens, pencils, those are the types of things, the Gojo soaps, the trash bags, those are things that are coming from Envision, that would be coming from imaging. Those are the types of services that could be provided, I think, from a statewide standpoint.
I do agree, and I think that it's worth it, our time, I think, to continue dialogue with Johnson County Developmental Supports, which works with a lot of disabled individuals in Johnson County and helps provide them with work. Because I see this as heavily weighted towards Sedgwick County, I want to make sure that since the population center of the state is in Johnson County, we've got a lot of people living there, a lot of people with developmental disabilities that deserve this partnership and deserve this work. So I'm happy to be a partner in this. As we look forward to this, especially when it comes to considering not just the carrot, but also the stick. I don't want Johnson County getting the stick when it comes to this. I want to make sure that we are building this throughout the areas while keeping logistics in mind as we're still dealing with supply chain issues. So I'm happy to be a part of the team in that regard to expand this to my area. Thank you so much for your presentation.
And I appreciate that. And I think with our vendors, that's been a lot of it. They're not really interested in the stick because they want that relationship. They want that business relationship, which is where I think you guys can be incredibly helpful with that.
And one of our clear goals is to grow the program. So if we're able to show value and growing value in the state program, there's no reason why Johnson County and other participants in rural Kansas wouldn't join this state use program. It's a fantastic program, but the issue is that, we have more people dropping off than joining, because currently, since 1950, they haven't necessarily seen that real value. And that's what I'm hoping to change, and hoping that you guys will help us change.
Thank you. And again, thank you for being here today.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the second try on this. In terms of the USDs and even the universities, they have K-Board, they have their local school districts that are setting policy. For example, even perhaps, or they certainly could, purchasing policy, and they can use the statute as a guide on how they set forth that policy. My question is, I often find, as we all do, that the boards are going to change over time, so they don't have that institutional knowledge and don't know what the laws are, and this happens this is education, this is an area I'm familiar with quite a bit. There's something in statute and they have no idea that they're supposed to do it. So my question then is, have you been regularly promoting this through KASB, Kansas Association of School Boards? So they do weekly letters and little podcasts and through KBOR, annually going to KBOR and making sure that this is, and I see good results for KU and others, but just wanted to know how you share this information.
Great questions. And yes, we've worked through the Association of School Boards. We have worked through the Department of Education. And we have representatives. Association of School Boards actually appoints the school board members that serve on the Oversight Committee. So they are to be that liaison to help us with that. The coalition has collectively worked together to do joint promotional pieces. We've put videos together to kind of put a face on the program to help educate them throughout the years. So, and then with KBOR, Rick Beatty actually came from KU. He's now your director of purchasing here in the state. And so, yeah, he's been a great supporter in helping us in making additional. But again, like you said, turnover happens. It is a constant. Yes.
Yeah, it's disappointing that you don't have more schools participating, considering you're doing all of that. I would just say the key is making sure local school boards understand it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And committee, our time is running out. We do have questions from Representative Tarwater. So, Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll try to make this quick. In regards to the school districts, I'm actually encouraged that Blue Valley is running like a business and making good business decisions. I just think that if they need to, they could possibly look beyond that if they did have a good relationship with you, and they knew where a few extra cents might be going. And they could do what's the best value for them and best value for Kansas, especially if you get somebody like Andy in front of them. I don't know how many Andys there are, but my guess is if you put them in cars and get them to these school districts, you would make a world of difference. I want to address the minimum wage and the IDD issue. We've met with a lot of these employees that benefit from working in these factories. And they're people that are really, they've got nothing, and they've got nothing to do. They've been discarded from the real workforce. They've been told that they're not good at things. And yeah, they don't make a whole lot of money, but it's more of a community for some of these people where they get to go to work and they get to be a part of something, and they might put an item in a bag once every couple of minutes just to be there and be part of something. And it really makes a world of difference. Even if you didn't pay them, they just want to be involved. They want to have some value in their lives. And so I'd like you to keep that in mind when you start thinking about minimum wage. And these places really are not taking advantage of these employees. I've met with them, and it's pretty incredible how they change their lives. $10 million to $200,000. This is my final issue here. Envision said they spent $5 million last year. Was Envision, back when we were doing the $10 million, did Envision exist? And
Envision did exist.
And have you grown? Is this like we funded it to start, and then you guys made profits and worked your way through it?
What we've done is we've started providing more services that the state of Kansas used to provide. So we're now taking on that ownership and responsibility, which means that we're funding it. We've got remote employees that travel to rural Kansas and does orientation mobility and talks to them about their daily living and what they can do. Again, it's something that we are proud of doing. It's something that we're probably the best people to be doing it because that is our profession. But it was surprising to me when I heard those numbers as well. But it is a real number. I've been at Envision for 22 years. And Representative Tarwater, I appreciate you saying that about the sub-minimum wage part of it. I came, before coming to Envision, I worked 9 years at a niche agency that worked with developmental disabilities. And what's happening with this sub-minimum wage certificate is a lot of times people are closing programs because they can't afford to, number one, be competitive, which is what we're all talking about today. People want to spend their monies wisely, but yet you have somebody who's 5% productive and you may have to pay them, you know, a minimum wage salary. It is a very difficult and very political conversation, and I appreciated you mentioned that, but to see somebody with severe Down syndrome or traumatic brain injury, it used to be called mental retardation, but to receive a check, even if that check is for $15, you know, they are so proud of getting that check that they're not the ones that are bothered by it, it's everybody else that's looking in on it. And to see some of these programs as representative of some of these agencies that on the state youth program are struggling to battle that sub-minimum wage issue, I think what ended up happening is they will end up closing those programs and those people will not be served. And I think that's a travesty to that intent. So I didn't want to get too far into it. I just wanted to share that with you from my experience and what we do. Fortunately, Envision is in a position where we're able to pay people above minimum wage, regardless of their productivity. But as we're talking about that, we also have to be competitive. You know, you have to weigh that into the calculations as well. And we want to serve the most severe disabled Kansans. And, you know, what's going to end up happening is they won't have a place to go. A lot of times it's really an adult developmental activities program where they're coming in and getting away from the group homes and being able to congregate and feel like that they're contributing as an employee. And, you know, it's a tough situation, and I know it's much broader than what today's conversation is about, but I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you so much. Our time is up. I know that some folks have a lot more questions, and I would venture to guess that our conferees would be happy to visit with any of the committee members after we adjourn. I want to thank Betty and Andy and Natalie for the presentation today. Natalie, I, for one, would like to see the list of USDs that are purchasing. If you could send that electronically to our committee assistants, then we could at least be able to look at that online and hopefully not use a lot of paper. So anything else?